For 500 years, one name has haunted history with visions of tomorrow. Now, could the most startling prophecy of Nostradamus be unfolding before our very eyes? Welcome to the Purple Files. If you enjoy our videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get right into it. We journey into the 16th century to meet Michel de Nostradamus, known to the world as Nostradamus. Born in France in the year 1503, he was a physician and astrologer, living in a time of great upheaval and discovery. While he tended to the sick, his gaze was also fixed upon the stars and what he believed they revealed about the future. His fame rests upon Les Prophecies, the Prophecies, first published in 1555. These are collections of 4-line poems or quatrains written in a cryptic mix of languages and filled with symbolic imagery. For centuries, these verses have been scrutinized, debated, and interpreted. Some see uncanny predictions of major world events, devastating wars, the rise and fall of empires, even specific leaders. They point to his words seemingly foreshadowing figures like Napoleon or Hitler, and events like the Great Fire of London. Others argue that Nostradamus was a master of vague language, his quatrains so open-ended they can be matched to almost any event after it has happened. Was he a true seer, gifted with a glimpse beyond the veil of time? Or a clever wordsmith whose work has been kept alive by human nature's desire to find patterns and meaning? This enduring mystery is what draws us to him. And it is from this legacy of enigmatic predictions that a particular warning now emerges, one that speaks of the year 2027, with implications that demand our urgent attention. At the very heart of Nostradamus's enduring legend, his prophetic quatrains, the poetic verses that have puzzled and fascinated the world for nearly 5 centuries. These are not straightforward predictions. They are intricate tapestries woven with words, designed, it seems, to conceal as much as they reveal. Nostradamus published his visions in a work titled Les Prophecies, with the first edition appearing in the year 1555. He organized these prophecies into centuries, each century ideally containing 104-line poems, or quatrains. While his full intention was 10 centuries, a total of 1,000 quatrains, the surviving collection gives us 942. Each quatrain stands as a miniature enigma, a self-contained puzzle. The language Nostradamus employed is a key element of their mystery. He wrote primarily in a 16th century French, but he deliberately blended this with Latin, ancient Greek, and even the regional dialect of Provence. This linguistic cocktail, combined with his frequent use of anagrams, allegorical figures, mythological references, and cryptic symbolism, makes direct, unambiguous interpretation incredibly challenging. Specific dates are rare, and geographical locations are often veiled in archaic names or poetic descriptions. It is this very obscurity that has fueled centuries of debate and interpretation. For believers, the quatrains hold genuine foresight, their meanings becoming clear only when history catches up to the vision. They see the complex language as a necessary shield, perhaps to protect Nostradamus himself from persecution in an era when prophesying could be a dangerous occupation, or to ensure the prophecies transcended his own time. For skeptics, however, this vagueness is the quatrain's greatest trick. They argue that the verses are so open to interpretation that they can be retrospectively fitted to a vast array of historical events. A line about a great fire could apply to countless conflagrations throughout history. A reference to a young leader could describe any number of figures. Yet, regardless of belief or skepticism, the power of these quatrains is undeniable. They have been pored over by scholars, mystics, and the merely curious for generations. Kings and queens sought their counsel. They have been cited in times of war and peace, crisis and calm. This enduring legacy, this persistent ability to spark curiosity and claim relevance across vast stretches of time, makes Nostradamus's quatrains a unique phenomenon in the history of prophetic literature. They remain a profound testament to the human desire to understand the future and our willingness to find patterns even in the most cryptic of messages. For centuries, the 942 known Quatrains of Nostradamus have been the primary source of his prophetic legacy. Scholars and enthusiasts have meticulously analysed these verses, seeking to align their cryptic messages with the grand sweep of history. But what if a crucial piece of the puzzle remained hidden, or perhaps overlooked, only to surface with a chilling message for our modern era? This is the intriguing premise behind the alleged 2027 warning, the narrative of a lost verse or a newly emphasized prophecy concerning the year 2027 is not one of a freshly discovered manuscript hidden away for centuries. Instead, it often revolves around reinterpretations of existing texts, or perhaps quatrains that were previously considered obscure or less significant, now thrust into the spotlight due to new analyses or perceived connections to current global anxieties. Sometimes these claims point to specific lines within the known corpus of les Prophecies that, when viewed through a contemporary lens, seem to resonate with an alarming specificity for the near future. The process of unearthing such a warning often involves dedicated researchers or interpreters who delve deeply into Nostradamus's complex language and symbolism. They might argue that previous translations missed a crucial nuance, or that a particular astrological configuration mentioned by Nostradamus now aligns perfectly with the celestial patterns of 2027. These proponents suggest that the obscurity of the verse was intentional, its true meaning only becoming clear as the prophesied time draws near. However, such claims are almost invariably met with considerable skepticism from mainstream historians and Nostradamus scholars. The established body of his work is well documented, and the idea of a truly lost verse materializing after 500 years is highly improbable. More often, these new warnings are the product of passionate, sometimes speculative, rereadings of the existing material. The challenge lies in distinguishing between a genuine insight, if such a thing is possible with Nostradamus, and the natural human tendency to find patterns that confirm pre-existing fears or expectations, regardless of its precise origins, whether a re-evaluated old verse or a more contentious claim of a newly highlighted prediction. The very idea of a specific, time-sensitive warning from Nostradamus focusing on the year 2027 has captured significant attention. It taps into our innate curiosity about the future, our anxieties about the state of the world, and the enduring mystique of a seer whose words have echoed through history, daring us to decipher their ultimate meaning. This unearthed warning now stands as a focal point for contemporary discussion about his prophecies. When a prophecy is linked to a specific year, especially one from a figure as renowned as Nostradamus, the human imagination inevitably leaps to dramatic conclusions. The very mention of a 2027 warning conjures images of significant, perhaps even cataclysmic, global events. But what exactly are the implications being drawn from these alleged predictions? Is it truly a forecast of Armageddon, or something else entirely? The interpretations of the supposed 2027 prophecy vary widely, often reflecting the anxieties and focal points of our current times. Some who promote this warning suggest it points towards a period of unprecedented global conflict, perhaps a third world war escalating from existing geopolitical tensions. They might highlight Nostradamus's verses that speak of great battles, clashing empires, or the fall of powerful leaders, and argue these align with the trajectory of international relations leading up to 2027. Others focus on the possibility of catastrophic natural disasters. Nostradamus frequently wrote of fire from the sky, great floods, earth-shaking tremors, and pestilence. Proponents of the 2027 prophecy might link these ancient descriptions to modern concerns about climate change, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, or even new devastating pandemics. The year 2027, in this context, becomes a potential flashpoint for nature's fury. Economic collapse is another common theme. Verses speaking of famine, poverty, and the ruin of wealthy nations are sometimes interpreted as predicting a worldwide financial crisis, far exceeding previous downturns. The interconnectedness of the global economy means that a significant shock in one region could have cascading effects, and some believe Nostradamus foresaw such a breakdown around this specific year. Furthermore, some interpretations delve into themes of societal upheaval, the collapse of established orders, or even profound spiritual or consciousness shifts. The idea of an Armageddon isn't always taken literally as a biblical end of days, but rather as a metaphor for a period of immense, transformative crisis that reshapes human civilization. It is crucial to understand that these implications are derived from interpretations of highly ambiguous verses. Nostradamus rarely, if ever, provided clear, undeniable details that could confirm such specific outcomes for a particular year. The label Armageddon itself is often a sensationalized framing drawing on the most dramatic possible readings of his symbolic language. The process of decoding his prophecies for 2027 involves piecing together fragmented clues, allegories, and perceived historical parallels, a method that is inherently subjective and open to a multitude of conclusions. The implications, therefore, remain speculative, a shadowy outline of potential futures drawn from centuries-old words. While Nostradamus clothed his prophecies in layers of allegory and metaphor, those who believe in a specific 2027 warning often point to what they interpret as chilling specifics, details that, when pieced together, paint a disturbing picture of the future. These are not always direct statements, but rather inferences drawn from his symbolic language, which, for some, resonate with terrifying clarity. The visions of fire and fury often emerge from quatrains depicting great conflagrations, celestial bombardments, or widespread destruction. Interpreters might highlight verses speaking of fire from the sky, burning lands, or cities turned to ash. In the context of 2027, these are sometimes linked to fears of advanced weaponry, devastating acts of terrorism, or even cosmic events like asteroid strikes. The fury aspect can be seen in predictions of immense human conflict, with nations pitted against each other in brutal warfare, or civil strife tearing societies apart from within. Specific geographical regions occasionally feature in these interpretations, though often veiled. For instance, mentions of the eagle might be taken to mean the United States, or the bear to represent Russia. Lines describing conflicts near eastern gates or across great waters are meticulously analysed for clues about where these prophesied events might unfold. Some interpreters claim to find references to specific types of conflict, such as naval battles or sieges of major urban centres. Natural disasters also form a core part of these chilling specifics. Quatrains describing great inundations, earthquakes that shake the foundations of the world, or pestilence that decimates populations are frequently cited. For the year 2027, these are sometimes tied to accelerated climate change impacts, predictions of megaquakes in vulnerable zones, or the emergence of new, uncontrollable diseases. The specificity often comes not from Nostradamus naming a modern phenomenon, but from interpreters matching his archaic descriptions to contemporary fears. Furthermore, some analyses focus on the downfall of prominent leaders or the collapse of powerful institutions. Verses speaking of kings overthrown, the mighty humbled, or the great empire crumbling are applied to the current global political and economic landscape, suggesting a period of profound instability and power shifts around 2027. It is vital to remember that these specifics are the product of intense, often subjective, interpretation of poetic and symbolic texts written nearly 500 years ago. The chilling nature of these details arises from the human capacity to see reflections of our deepest anxieties in these ancient words, particularly when a specific time frame, like 2027, is brought into focus. The visions of fire and fury are potent because they tap into primal fears of chaos and destruction. To understand the weight given to any new interpretation of Nostradamus, including the alleged 2027 warning, we must look at his historical track record. For nearly 500 years, his quatrains have been subjected to intense scrutiny, with countless attempts made to link his cryptic verses to major world events. The results form a fascinating yet highly contentious history of prophetic interpretation. Believers in Nostradamus's foresight point to a number of seemingly uncanny hits, perhaps most famously, Quatrain 2-51, which speaks of, "The blood of the just will commit a fault at London, burnt through lightning of 23's the 6. The ancient lady will fall from her high place. Several of the same sect will be killed," is widely interpreted as a prediction of the Great Fire of London in 1666. Another often cited prophecy relates to the rise of Adolf Hitler. Quatrain 2-24 mentions Hister, a name remarkably close to Hitler, and also an old name for the Danube River, near which Hitler was born. The verse speaks of a charismatic leader who will sway many and bring about great conflict. Other events frequently attributed to Nostradamus's prescience include the French Revolution, the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, sometimes identified through anagrams like Pau Né Laurent being twisted into Napoleon Roy or Napoleon the King, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and even the September 11th attacks in 2001. For each of these, proponents find lines and symbols within the quatrains that, to them, align with the historical facts with remarkable accuracy. However, skeptics offer strong counter-arguments. They emphasize the profound ambiguity of Nostradamus's language. His verses are so vague and symbolic that they can be, and have been, retroactively fitted to a vast array of different events. This phenomenon is known as post-diction, interpreting a prophecy only after the event has occurred, making it seem like a perfect match. Critics argue that if the prophecies were truly clear, they would allow us to predict events before they happen, which is rarely, if ever, the case with Nostradamus. Furthermore, many of the supposed hits rely on flexible translations, creative interpretations of symbolism, and sometimes the shoehorning of facts to fit the verse. The Hister reference, for example, is a legitimate geographical term from Nostradamus's time, and its connection to Hitler could be coincidental. Dates are almost never explicit, and geographical locations are often poetically obscured. Thus, Nostradamus's track record is less a clear tally of successes and failures, and more a testament to the enduring power of ambiguous texts to capture the human imagination. For every successful prediction hailed by believers, there are countless quatrains that remain indecipherable or seem to have no clear historical correlate. The centuries of speculation have solidified his mystique, but have done little to definitively prove or disprove his prophetic abilities. His legacy remains one of profound mystery, fueled by interpretations that often say as much about the interpreter as they do about Nostradamus himself. While the allure of Nostradamus's prophecies, including any purported warnings for 2027, is undeniable, it is essential to view them through the lens of skepticism. The interpretation of ancient prophecies is fraught with challenges and cognitive biases that can lead us to see patterns and predictions where none were definitively intended. From a critical standpoint, several key arguments cast doubt on the literal predictive power of texts like Les Prophecies. The primary challenge lies in the inherent vagueness and ambiguity of Nostradamus's language. His quatrains are rich in symbolism, metaphor, and archaic terminology, often blending multiple languages. This obscurity means that a single verse can be twisted and molded to fit a multitude of events, especially when viewed in hindsight. Skeptics argue that this is not evidence of foresight, but rather a testament to the flexibility of open-ended statements. Almost any major event could, with enough creativity, find a corresponding quatrain. This leads to the phenomenon known as retroactive clairvoyance or post-diction. It is far easier to match a prophecy to an event after it has occurred than to use it to predict an event before it happens. Once an event unfolds, details can be selectively highlighted or ignored to make the prophecy appear remarkably accurate. If Nostradamus's predictions were truly clear, we would expect a consistent record of foreseeing future events, which is demonstrably not the case. Confirmation bias also plays a significant role. Humans have a natural tendency to seek out, interpret, favor, and recall information that confirms or supports their pre-existing beliefs or values. If someone is inclined to believe in prophecy or is anxious about a particular future outcome, they are more likely to interpret ambiguous verses in a way that validates those feelings. They might unconsciously overlook contradictory evidence or alternative interpretations. Furthermore, the sheer volume of Nostradamus's work, 942 quatrains, increases the probability of random chance alignments. Given enough verses filled with diverse imagery, it is statistically likely that some will appear to coincide with historical events purely by coincidence, especially over a span of nearly 5 centuries. Skeptics also point to the lack of specific, verifiable details in most of his prophecies. Names are often anagrams or allusions, dates are exceedingly rare, and locations are frequently described in poetic rather than precise geographical terms. This lack of falsifiability makes it difficult to scientifically test the accuracy of his predictions. A truly useful prophecy would offer clear, unambiguous details that could be verified or refuted. From the skeptic's gaze, Nostradamus was perhaps a gifted poet, a man of his tumultuous times reflecting its anxieties, or even a clever commentator on contemporary events disguised as prophecy. The enduring fascination with his work, they argue, says more about human psychology, our desire for certainty, our search for meaning in chaos, and our fascination with the unknown than it does about any genuine ability to see the future. The 2027 warning, like others before it, is likely another chapter in this long history of human interpretation, rather than a clear message from the past. As we draw the curtains on our exploration of Nostradamus and the persistent whispers of a 2027 prophecy, we are left not with definitive answers, but with the enduring enigma of the man and his work. For nearly 5 centuries, Michel de Nostradamus has captivated, perplexed, and at times alarmed the world. His Centuries remain one of history's most debated and reinterpreted texts. The allure is undeniable. In a world often characterized by chaos and uncertainty, the idea that someone, centuries ago, might have glimpsed the broad strokes of our future offers a strange kind of comfort, or at least a compelling narrative. The human desire to find patterns, to understand the trajectory of events, and perhaps even to feel a sense of control over the unknown, fuels the ongoing fascination with figures like Nostradamus. His prophecies, vague as they are, provide a canvas onto which we project our contemporary anxieties and hopes. Yet, as we've seen, the skeptical perspective provides a crucial counterbalance. The arguments against literal prophetic power, the ambiguity of the language, the prevalence of retroactive interpretation, the lack of verifiable specifics, and the role of cognitive biases are compelling. From this viewpoint, Nostradamus was a product of his turbulent era, a learned individual whose poetic and symbolic writings reflected the fears and preoccupations of the 16th century, rather than a clear window into the 21st. So, what is the final word on Nostradamus? Perhaps it is that his true legacy lies not in the accuracy of his predictions, which remains largely unproven and hotly contested, but in the enduring power of his words to provoke thought, inspire debate, and reflect the human condition. His quatrains have become a kind of cultural Rorschach test, revealing more about the interpreters and their times than about the seer himself. The alleged 2027 warning, like countless interpretations before it, will likely fade or be re-evaluated as the year itself passes. But the enigma of Nostradamus will persist. He remains a symbol of the mysterious, a testament to our fascination with the future, and a reminder of the fine line between insight and interpretation, prophecy and poetry. His enduring enigma is not whether he truly saw our tomorrows, but why, after so many centuries, we still find ourselves looking back at his ancient words, searching for clues to our own destiny. The final word, it seems, is never truly final when it comes to Nostradamus. The mystery continues, and that is it. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the Purple Files. Click the like button and drop a comment down below. More videos to come, and until then, thanks for watching.